Okay, so we're going to look at a method for building a custom light. In particular, a custom light that's going to go vertical on a column. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to put in a floor, just because it seems like we need a floor for the columns. So big floor, finish, and then I'm going to use the wall tool to draw in sort of stylistically a couple of columns right down the middle, so we can just sort of begin to see what these things are going to look like. Cool. So let's do that and array. Last, let's do 5 like that. Cool. So what we've got is this kind of thing right here. And what we want to do is put a light fixture on those columns, a vertical light, custom vertical light fixture on the columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the big R, new, family. The family template that I'm going to use is going to be a light something. Let's use a light fixture wall based, since we know that's where we want it to go. Okay, so I'm going to say open. So in this template, we actually get a concept of a wall, where the light source is, or what the light source is, and we can build something to go right along with that. So the first thing, if you want a more vertical, slim-ish light source, I'm going to change the light source definition to something that matches that. So we're going to say it's going to emit from a linear shape, and not all the way around, but sort of a semi-circle-ish kind of thing. So we can actually have that emanate away from the wall itself. So I'm going to say OK to that. And then we need to orient that in the correct position. So let's look at the placement side view. Wow, seems like there's absolutely nothing there. There we go. So I'm going to take that dude, and hopefully we're going to rotate it 90 degrees to the vertical. Remove constraints. Let's look at the plan view. Wow, seems really way off in terms of how that's set up by default. There we go. I'm going to select the light source definition again. Let's rotate it so that it is actually working toward the wall. And I'm just to be more precise about it, I'm actually going to position it so it's exactly on that wall. Okay. Now I'm not going to get into. I mean, there are ways that we can really fine tune this to make it all locked and linked in, and we can make it so we can modify it. We're going to just set it up as a single default that works correctly. It's not going to be very parametric, So if you type in new dimensions, this isn't going to update particularly well. But what I want to do is change this light source definition so that it is more in line with what you want it to be. And I think in particular, this thing, you wanted this long, thin piece. So I'm going to define that as 8 feet, and we'll see it sort of stretch out right there. Yeah, I think that's good. And I'll say OK. When we place this, we'll be able to move it vertically up and down on the wall. So I'm not too worried about anything else with it. I'm just concerned about sort of it working the right way. So the next thing that I'm going to do is make a box on there that represents. So this is not a fixture; it's just an illumination source. Okay. So I do want to make the fixture on there. So I do want to go ahead and come in. So let's set the wall as our reference plane. And I'm going to draw my basic box right over the top of this. Whoa. So it is, right now I've got it as a 9, well, I'm going to set it as this anyway, a 9 foot tall and 1 foot wide box. Probably want it narrower than that, don't you? Like, let's do it more like that. What you were drawing for me is a sort of long, thin kind of thing. like that. And again, you know, you need more detail in this than what I'm going to do, but what this is going to give us is a 3 inches out, 3 inches wide kind of fixture that we could do an LED light in. And
can you embed it into the wall, or that's just a whole different thing?
You can, yeah, but I would probably, yeah, that's a whole nother question. I mean, there is a way that we can define a cut and some things like that. But I think that might get into, like, the way for you to do it now, it's sort of an entry level thinking on Revit would probably be to work through that as how you build the custom component inside of your Revit model itself, rather than trying to make a family that does the cut into a wall and all of those things with it. So, you know, you might decide to actually do this fixture inside of your model and not make it part of the family if that's where it needs to go.
All right.
You know, so you actually model that in, and then you don't have this piece, the fixture piece. You just worry about the light source.
Yeah.
But let's kind of wrap this up, because the next thing I want to do is give that sort of a translucent material. So I can use the default glass. I'm going to actually, let's make a brand new material, create new material, and let's call it rename fixture translucent. It's translucent. I hope I spelled that right. Appearance, transparency. Let's look at this. We want this to be fairly transparent. We want a little bit brighter, whiter here. Other things that we should change. It's probably pretty good for right now. You know, the other thing that we could do is we might at some point want to get into, you know, you can go to this replace asset, and there are all of these materials underneath the appearance library. And, you know, it might be a, there might be a glass material that is more, yeah, like say this frosted, that might give us that right kind of result. That would have, let's just load that in. I mean, because that might be closer to what we want. Okay, so I've loaded that in, and that's going to do fixture translucent. That's going to give me this kind of quality on there, which might be the right thing. Might be the right thing. Why is it that terrible green? Wow, don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to say okay. So I have that and that working together. So the last thing that I want to do is I'm going to go back to my reference plane level. And again, this is a cheat, and it's okay. Sometimes we have to cheat. I'm going to move that lighting definition outside of my fixture by just a bit, because I don't want this guy casting a shadow.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, again, that's kind of a lie, but I really don't want that casting that shadow. And that said, you know, if we want the light stretching this way and this way along the wall, kind of flip-flopping here a bit, I think maybe we do want this, you know, so that we were actually getting that light washing along the wall. But again, I'm keeping it out of this box so it doesn't cast a shadow, so the fixture doesn't act, and which again, it is kind of a lie, but it's kind of what we have to do, because, you know, I can't tell in Revit, I can't tell this guy not to cast a shadow. Okay, so with that, I'm going to do the big R, save as, family. Okay, so this is a family, no different than bringing in a current family. I'm just going to call this light S for Sama. Say save. Then I'm going to click load into project, and that's going to bring it in right here. And so it's already there at light S. And I'm going to place it here and here and here and here and here. And let's just for fun, let's keep going because we want to keep going.
I wanted to place it on 3 sides.
On 3, okay, well then we'll do all 3 sides. So you can see, I mean, the advantage of doing this not as something that you build in the model is that we can do that really quickly. You know, I mean, we can do this really fast. Getting further into how to build families, maybe we can make something that is in the family that cuts the hole that you're talking about. Yeah, it's kind of like next level stuff.
I can get away with it though for this.
Okay, so I'm gonna set this up. Oops, not that one. So let's look at this in perspective. Cool. So then let's come in and let's go to our rendering. A little teapot.
Can I see the shadows?
Let's do, sure. Yeah, let's do this really quick. So shadows, give you that kind of thing. Daytime, turn that off. Back to rendering. Medium, artificial lights only. Yeah, render. And let's see what happens. So it's doing 15 artificial lights. Not seeing a lot of anything now, but when we adjust our exposure, I'm hoping that we do. Absolutely nothing. Wow, what happened? Let's see here.
Yeah, that kept happening to me too. I think it's because of the time, but that was only because I needed the morning render.
So I'm going to do that. Let's go back to edit the family. Let's select that light source. So our definition is good. And our values, that's not really where I want to be. I actually want it to be right here under the types. Factor, lamp. Have I wattage comments? All that stuff should be fine. Color. Let's look back here really quickly at light source definitions. Shape, that's all good. Light source definitions. Oh, that's the same as the button that I just clicked up above. And it did find the lights. Light loss factor, all that stuff looks good.
Maybe it's in the
Interesting. Let's go back. And let's hopefully we can work through this. Okie dokie. So let's go visibility graphics override and let's actually turn on our light sources. Lights. Lighting fixtures, light sources, apply. I want to make sure that they're all there. And they are. That seems to be good. And let's select one of those dudes. And let's edit the type. You know, it still seems a little bit terrifying to me that there's actually nothing there in the lamp. And I don't know if that's simply something that I don't need to worry about the definition for, or if that's something that I need to actually set up a value for.
Maybe you need to set up.
You know, and that's where I'm used to seeing it 12 watts. I mean, that's almost nothing. Let's set that to 100 watts and apply and okay. I don't think this is going to change anything. I mean, I'm just not feeling too good about what I'm seeing on it, but let's try it again anyway. Yeah, and I don't think that changed anything at all.
Usually when that happened to me, I went to adjust and then I went to actually in session lighting.
Yeah, but as long as I have, so in session lighting's not going to do anything because artificial only is going to turn the sun off and turn our artificial lights on. And they're all checked, so that's all good. I should have remembered to go and check that. Show the model. So let's go back into the family. Let's take one more good effort here at this guy, and let's see if I can't maybe start with let's start with a slightly different family. Let's go family. Well, actually, take this back. If I'm in a view one of this guy, or let's see if I can just go to the default 3D view. Now I don't have rendering in here. That would have been really nice. But let's change the light source definition. Let's just change it to something, and let's see if that doesn't modify our results. So overriding, render, not seeing anything at all change. Let's make sure that the exposure is still, yep, it's as bright as it can be. So that's okay, so it's not that. Show the model. Let's go back to the family again. And let's start a new one. Let's just use a different family to start with. New family. And we were underneath lighting. Lighting fixture wall based. Let's just start with a lighting fixture, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and rename this. Save as family. And let's name it light S2. So what I'm wanting to do is like, okay, let's get the standard of all standards working here. Okay, so let's place it here and here and here and here. Okay, so let's go back to our perspective. So you can see I've placed these little studio lights in now, essentially. Let's do our rendering. And so now I should see 20. Yeah, okay, so now those lights are working. These guys are not. So there's something about the way that family is defined that I am clearly missing, which is totally cool. It's troubleshooting 101. Let's go back to that family again. And back to a 3D view on it. I'm just wondering to see if, in fact, we can see something different in this group of settings that might be showing up in light S2. Let's see here. Where was that guy? More open views. Light S2. Okay, so I'm going to select this guy and this panel. Wow, there's really nothing terribly different there. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and change it. Light source definition. Let's change it to align. Okay, and okay. Load it into project. Project 1. It should ask us to overwrite. Yep, I want to overwrite, and let's render with those. So we should see them now. They're sort of in that pill shape, you know? Render and render. And let's see if we're still, yep, we're still working. Okay, so stop. Yep. So let's go back into S2. I'm going to select this dude. And I am going, oh, it doesn't want to copy it to the clipboard. Mean thing. Okay, so let's do it. It probably won't. I mean, I can try it. But like if it's not going to do it one way, it's probably not going to do it the other way. Yeah, no. Okay, so let's build this dude in my other light fixture that I know is working, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay. And it's going to be more like a standard custom component. It's not going to be attached to a wall anymore. I'll post this as a question as well. We'll just go ahead and put it on YouTube. Somebody might say, oh, here's what you did wrong, knucklehead. And that's fine. It happens a lot to me. I'm okay. I'm humble. So let's go into this light S2 file that we built. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, from the reference level, I'm going to come in and we're going to do a create extrusion. Let's build that box. So I'm going to come out 3 inches, over 1.5 inches, 3 inches, up, trim, delete. We're going to make it 8 feet tall. Okay, so we've got that. We're going to set this to our glass material. I'm not going to walk through all that again. Let's just set it up for glass. Okay, we're going to take this guy and I'm going to use my front elevation. I hope it's in there someplace. There we go. We're going to unlock it. See what happens here. We're going to unlock it, rotate it 90 degrees, remove constraints. We're going to make that dude 8 feet tall. Apply. So we've got that nice tall kind of thing happening again. And then from our floor plan view, again, I want this guy moved just outside of my box. Okay, so let's go load into project, project 1, overwrite, and now I should see all of those guys, the physical version and the light emit version. So we want to erase that, and that, and that, and that. Oh dear. Erase one too many things. Oh dear.
It's okay.
Now that I've started the pattern, I'm just going to do it with all of them. Okay, so this guy now, essentially what I want to do is, that's one more mean dude. Okay, so let's go move to there. Let's copy this whole thing. You know, one of the things that could have happened on that other one, I actually want to see this really quick. Just thinking through this. Let's look at the lights. On occasion, you can get a light that rather than being outside where we think it's going to be, it shows up to the inside. And if it's, you know, essentially if we're putting a light bulb in a wall, it's not going to illuminate anything. You're just putting a light in a solid box. So to check that, again, I can go to the view properties. Let's go to lighting, light source. I mean, we built it the right way. You know, they're still kind of in that box. I thought I had it outside of the box. Sorry, I'm just kind of going through this one more time because it makes me a little bit nervous. You know, that I, you know.
It didn't work. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things that should have worked. And I'm just thinking through why it might not have. And if that light source ended up in that box somehow or another, that would sure do it. And why am I not seeing the light source in here anymore? Oh, because it's that. I'm going to change it back to that. And back to this. And let's go back to our reference floor plan. Maybe, just maybe, we need to move it even further outside of it. Okay. Save. You know, there's like something in my head that's that's saying it's not gonna work, but they're definitely not in the walls, and that was my fear, was that it might be here. But let's just see what happens with that. So I want to erase these guys. It's not gonna work. I can feel it in my bones. It's not gonna work. But I want to try render. So 15 lights.
Oh.
Yeah, of course it's gonna work. Yeah, you know, somehow or another I had those lights buried inside of that fixture. Essentially, it was stopping the light inside of the fixture and not working correctly. It's like one of those things. It happens more often than you think. It happens like with a can light that's recessed into the ceiling, happens all the time. So now we can go back, adjust the exposure. It needs to be darker. Yeah, and now we can see sort of,
Oh, that's
yeah,
a really good effect.
yeah,
I like it.
you're starting to get that linear light. And again, it's not, I would like to see Revit
Yeah,
do a better job. Those still look like they're points.
Yeah.
Even though I think that the right definition's in there, you know, it's still
Maybe we
not
need to
sort
extend it even more, the light.
yeah, there would be that. Let's go back to look at that family one more time. Let's see what other options we might have. So let's do the definition. You know, it might be that we can do something more like a flat panel and apply. Okay, and let's look at its properties. So it would
Maybe
be an
higher than
8. Yeah, let's do 10. I think this is going to give us something really similar, though. And let's look at it again in plan view, and let's make sure it's way out in front, and it is. Load into project. So we should see that overwrite. Okay, so we've got that kind of thing happening. Render. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's giving us a much better effect. A much better effect in terms of that wash of light across there.
Can we put the lighting adjustment down? I just want to like.
Yeah, once it finishes, I can do that.
Actually do that.
So we're gonna go not that way. We want to go to the darker direction. Yeah, you know, it's still we're getting that hot spot in the middle, but you're definitely getting a better wash of light coming away from it.
How would you extend that spot into like a linear?
You mean the hot spot that we're getting? You know, I don't know, because that linear type of light is really what should be doing that for us. The other trick that we could maybe do with this, let's go back and edit the family one more time. So perhaps we could take this dude and change it to a point.
Yeah, and put a point at the top and a point at the bottom.
I was actually going to do 3.
All right, yeah.
You know, so we can take this guy and let's do a copy. Wow, copy's not even an option. Huh. It might be that we can only have one per. Yeah, we can only have one per. Only one, essentially one light source per family. Kind of a little bit surprised on that. So, you know, I suppose what you could do then in your scene.
If you put a light source here and have it casted down.
Yeah, you know, you could do something up and down, maybe, but I think what you're really getting into is this idea that you would need to do multiple lights, and so multiple families, or you can utilize the studio light component in your project. You know, you can come in to this, and it might be that you go in and go architecture, component, load family, lighting, architectural, internal, and just grab these little studio lights. And, you know, let's go to level 1. And perhaps we can do a better job of just sort of placing these little studio lights, again, sort of just outside of the surface. So if we look at that in 3D, let's turn our lights on in this view. Fixtures, source, okay. So you can see that right here. You know, and I can set it up towards the top. Maybe that needs to be about 4 feet higher. And then this way I can just run copies of it. You know, and maybe you can set those sort of top and bottom to wash that out a little bit. I've got one that's a little bit too far away. Slide that dude back in. And that might start to build the effect simply by putting more lights through there. And we can just take a look at how it renders out really quickly. I mean, it's still going to give you those hot spots. You know, so the other solution might be that you might need to pull that further away. But, I mean, we're starting to get it. We're getting a good wash of light. It's just those hot spots that, I mean, you know, maybe you can do a whole series, like maybe it needs 5 studio lights that overlap, that start to create more consistency, and you don't do the singular one. That's really going to be a rendering hit, though, in terms of time.